Hello, my name is Pat McCullum. I'm the field service engineer for the Hormann Company. Today we're going to be doing a step-by-step guide on the installation of a Speed Guardian 4000 door. In step one, we've removed the springs and the interlock switches and the gear. Now the column's ready to be stood up. In step two in the installation manual, we've installed our columns plumb, square, and level. We've used a straight edge to create a datum line 12 inches off the door. It's very important that the columns be parallel to one another because of light curtains and also for alignment issues. We've set the columns 12 inches, 12 inches. To the other side of the door, 12 inches, and we're parallel at 12 inches across. You can use a chalk line or a straight edge or marks off of a string line. It's very important for these doors to be parallel to one another. The Speed Guardian door, unlike other speed doors, the dimension for the size of the door is not the dimension of the door itself. On the tag that we previously showed, we'll show the dimensions in millimeters. The dimension on the door comes from the outside of the track to the opposite track on the outside of the track also. With your tape measure, set the outside of the track to the exact millimeters that's in your tags at the bottom of the door and also on the tags that are stuck to the spirals. This door is 2,998. So we see 2,998. After the dimensions are set in step 2, step 2.2a is to tighten the columns at the top, and then the next step would be to fasten the doors to the floor, securing both columns, and you're ready to proceed. In step 3, we've attached our brush seal to the header. The brush seal is aligned with the rubber grommet, and then the wire for the light curtain and the chain and spring tension monitoring switches will pass through this trough in the brush seal. Note that our retainer is missing the brush. In step 3.2, we install the motor mounting plate to the side frame according to how the door was ordered, right or left-hand mount. We've removed the bearings in the end frames for the spirals for later installation. We've also have our spiral frame sitting on the scissor lift here. You be very careful when doing this. Also, be very careful of the legs of the spirals that stick below the spiral, that they aren't damaged, because we have to mate up with the keys from the vertical track to the spiral track. We've raised our spiral frame above the side plate for lowering it down onto the side plate. This is a very tricky situation. You have to be very careful with this. In step 4.2, I've loosened the key that's in the vertical track. This is a half-round key that gets inserted from the vertical track and connects the vertical track with the spiral track. With one shoulder, raise the spiral and raise the vertical track key into the spiral. Once it's connected into the spiral, tighten only the top 2 set screws in the half-round key. Notice the gap in the track from the vertical track to the spiral track. And repeat the process for the rear key. Just snug the key into the top track. On the outside of this vertical track, there's a plate with the keys that are mounted behind the plate. It also has to be slid up into the bottom of the spiral. Gently tap up on the plate. Raise with your shoulder. Tap the plate till it touches the bottom of the spiral. Then secure. Tighten only the top set screws on the plate. I have my assistant down on the floor now, and he's going to raise the track up to meet the spiral. Raise the track. You see the gap is now gone. Now I secure the bottom set screws on the keys. When that is complete, I retighten my set screws on the track that were previously loosened. Gently snug the screws, do not over tighten them. Repeat the process for the other side of the door. Make sure that your side column is plumb and then tighten it fast. With the shaft on the ground, get your sprockets and your belt pulleys and the bearings that are going to be installed in the head plates. Make sure that there's no damage done to the shaft, and make sure that the sprockets are a slip fit. If there's any binding on this sprocket, you will have a very difficult time aligning the sprocket once it's up mounted in the head frame. Make sure that everything is a slip fit. No adjustments by hammer. Much easier to take care of this problem when it's on the ground than up in the air. We've reinstalled the shaft bearing. We're going to reinstall the shaft bearing in the motor side of the door. We're working on the non-motor side of the door right now. And on doors that are 10 foot and smaller, there is no center support bearing. You see in step 5, there's a center support bearing. Doors between 10 and 16 foot have one center support bearing that is dead center between the columns. Doors 16 foot and higher have 2 center support shaft carrier bearings that come with the door. They have to be mounted securely to the wall. At this time, do not totally secure the bearing. Leave it loose so that we can adjust the shaft back and forth after we put the motor on. Once we have our bearings in, we center the shaft into the door, setting the non-drive side at 7 1/4 inches from the side frame to the end of the shaft. On the motor side, the dimension is 13 5/16 from the side frame to the end of the shaft. Finally, at the end of step 5, once the shaft is dimensionally set into the side columns, you want to take the set screws out of the bearing and drill and dimple the shaft to lock down the bearings in the shaft so the shaft doesn't have a chance to walk. Okay, we're working on the non-drive side of the door. We're going to install the short key into the keyway using a soft-faced hammer to tap the key into the keyway. Notice that the center of the key is drilled and tapped, and that is for a jack screw in case you need to remove the key. Next, we're going to install the bearing. On the outside of the bearing, the sprocket. This is for the chain that lifts the door. Notice that the hub side of the sprocket is facing out. Now that the sprocket is set at 2 inches from the face of the door, there's a spacer goes in between the sprocket and the belt pulley. Belt pulley goes in with the mouth facing out off the front of the spool. So the strap is going to unwind off the front of the spool. And then notice the alignment between the belt and the idler pulley for the belt. They're straight in line. Okay, we've installed the sprocket on the motor side of the door. Now we're going to install the spacer, goes between the motor sprocket and the belt pulley for the spring tension. Note that the belt pulley, the mouth of the belt faces the front of the door. The strap will roll off of the front. Unlike the non-motor side of the door, the drive side gets a lock collar that holds the belt pulley in place. Step 6, we are going to feed the wiring across from the non-motor side to the motor side for the light curtain and the chain tension and spring tension detection switches. Feed the wire from behind the column, insert the light curtain wire through the grommet first, then neatly secure the wire into the wire grommets that are provided in the back of the side column. Now I'm going to feed our chain and spring tension switch wire through the same grommet. And then we're going to pass it through behind the spiral on the motor side and take it out to the side of the side frame for later wiring. Once your wires are over on the outside of the door frame, coil them neatly, hanging in the air so that they don't get damaged by scissor lift and forklift traffic. And for precaution, so that the bottom fixture on the bottom bar, when the bottom bar comes up past the light curtain cable, we're going to put a piece of tape right across here and secure the light curtain cable to the side of the door. As you can see on our door here, this is our test door. It has some tape on there. It's been repaired, and this is what happens when the light curtain cable gets snagged on the bottom fixture. So you want to make sure that the light curtain cable is secured to the side of the column. Okay, this is step 7. We're going to install the cross members that tie the two side frames, spiral frames together. We insert it through the end of the frame. And we fasten it with the self-threading fasteners. Do the same with the upper cross member. In step 7, we've installed our cross members that tie the two side frames together. We're also going to check that the top of the door is square, corner to corner, 122. And I'm square. Also in step 7, we're going to install gussets on the outside of the end spirals. And that's gusset gets fastened to the top and the sides of the door. And we're going to install a idler bearing at the tail end of the shaft on the non-motor side, which stabilizes the end of the shaft to the end frame. Step 7.3, we've previously installed our cross members. Step 7.4 shows an additional cross member at the back corners of the spirals, and that is if you have ordered a door with a hood. So if your door has a hood, it's going to have 3 cross members. One in the back is going to hold the back end of the hood. Carefully lift the motor onto the shaft. This normally takes 2 people. It's very heavy. You want to set the key top dead center. Preset your keyway on the motor at top dead center. Okay, next we're going to put the bolts through the back of the motor mounting plate. It's behind here. It's a little tricky to get to. We're going to take a motor spacer and put it on that bolt. You want to do the bottom bolt first. Do the same with the top. Put the spacer in the back. Check to make sure that the motor's level. And adjust accordingly. Now that we have our motor securely fastened in place, it is now time to make sure we tighten up the bearings in the spirals. So now that the motor is tightened down, there's no adjustments up, down with the motor or in or out. So now we can secure the bearings in place at the motor side, and then again at the idler side, we're going to secure the bearings there, making sure that the distance between the shaft and the end plate is the same. Also, make sure that if it's a door 10 foot or wider, the carrier bearing, support bearing for the shaft is set in place at proper distance and height, and the shaft is level. Step 9, we're going to install the chains. The chains connect the bottom panel to the drive shaft that we previously installed. We're going to make a mark on the back of our column at 10 inches. And we're going to do the same in the other side column, and this is for setting the timing of the chains. And the next step is we're going to hang the chains over the sprockets, and we're going to set the back side of the chain at that 10-inch mark. Okay, installing the lift chains, I've fed the lift chain up and over, and it's resting now over top of the hub of the sprocket. And I'm going to pull the chain on through. Now I'm going to grab the chain, I'm going to lift it up. And now the chain is set over the sprocket. I've set the chain so that the bottom of the chain is at my 10-inch mark that I previously marked on the back of the cabinet. Now we're going to go over and hang the chain on the motor side in the same identical way. Continuing with step 9, we're going to now attach our bottom fixtures, or bottom brackets, to the chain. Bottom brackets are right-left sensitive. The notch goes to the outside of the door. This is the left side bracket. I'm going to connect the bracket to the chain in the back. The rear chain goes onto the top of the bracket, so it hangs like this. Next, I'm going to take the idler sprocket and I'm going to lower the front of the chain down through the idler sprocket. Now I can attach the bottom of the chain from the front side to the bottom of the bracket on the bottom bracket. I'm going to remount the idler sprocket. There's the fork in the bottom of the bracket goes onto the back fastener. And then we're going to repeat the process on the motor side. Now that we have our chains installed, we need to set the tension of the chain. We're going to wind the bolt down to tighten up this idler bracket on the chain. Set the bracket so it's level. At 4 feet up, we need 1 inch of play front to back, which is equivalent to 4 inches in between the two chains. Okay, we have our bottom panel, and you'll notice in your crate you have a panel schedule. The panel schedule reads the bottom bar, which is the bottom panel. You take the 3 fasteners that come with the bottom brackets and you install them into the bottom bar. Now we're going to take the bottom bar and install it into the side columns. My partner is going to go high and I'm going to go low, so we're going to install it like this. Being very careful not to bang into the light curtains in the back of the track. I'm going to lower the... John, you're going to go first? You're in? I'm going to take the bottom bracket. We'll take the hinge for the first panel and put it up. Now, at this point, we check the level of the door by placing a level on top of the panel. And as you can see, by the level, our door panel is level. At this time, if the door panel is not level, you need to start over and re-level the door. That's why it's very critical to level the door and time the chains so that the bottom panel is level. In each crate of panels, you'll find a panel schedule. The panel schedule tells exactly where to put each panel, how the door was ordered. So this is the bottom bar. Bottom bar, panel number 1, panel number 2, panel number 3, and then our vision panel. This door was ordered with the vision panel as panel number 4. So panel number 4 is the vision panel, bottom bar. Also in the crate is a panel with a tag on it marked top. The top panel has no hinge on it. So on the top panel, there will be no hinge. So you make sure you do not put the top panel somewhere in the middle because you're not going to have a hinge. Okay, we've installed all our panels and we've wound our door by hand all the way to the top. You can see the bottom bracket all the way at the back end of the spiral. We've got our door all the way open now. With a 3mm Allen wrench, I'm going to loosen the set screws that hold the clamp down on the face of the spool for the belt that connects the spool to the spring. I'm going to insert the belt into the spool until it bottoms out up at the base of the clamp. I'll refasten the set screws. Now I'm going to take my spool and wrap the strap around one time . The strap is around itself once, coming off the front of the spool, and feed the strap behind the idler pulley. Now the strap is ready to be connected to the spring. Okay, we're going to assemble the spring strap clamps. We're going to insert with a lock washer on the bolt through the 3 clamps. Then a flat washer on the other side. You got 3 plates. And then a nylock nut. This is our spring tension strap clamp. Take our spring clamp that we previously assembled, feed the strap through the back of the 3 clamps. Underneath the shaft on the spring, make sure that the 2 bushings are on either side of the strap. Back up through the back plate. Down through the front. Make sure that the strap is between both bushings. And the strap is ready to be clamped down. You'll find in the back of the column a tag that has the height of the spring that's going to be a finished adjusted height on the pre-stretch. Each door has its own tag, and it's also marked with a dimension in millimeters. And we've blocked the spring up off the floor with blocks, so we have our pre-stretch stretch. I'm approximately 1 inch above my line. Now we're ready to install the strap and tighten the strap. Make sure that the clamp is level. We've attached our spring to the strap. Our strap is wound around the pulley up top properly. We have a strap that has no twists in it. Now we're ready to remove the blocks underneath the spring and attach the spring to the base of the column. And we're going to pull our spring down. You notice there's a fork on the back. Using a torpedo level, we're going to put a torpedo level on the base of the spring mount. Tighten the spring until the plate is level. And if we come up here and look, the bottom of our plate is even with our line. That spring has the proper spring tension. Cut off any excess strap. Okay, we've now mounted our spring tension and chain tension detection switches, and we're going to adjust them properly so that we've made contact on the roller and we have contact on the spring plate. Set the adjustment and lock the spring switch down. And now we're going to install our covers. We fasten our covers to the front. Make sure that the top bracket is installed. That connects the front cover to the spiral. And make sure the bracket that holds the bottom of the cover is adjusted properly so that the light curtain can see through the between the door column and the cover. This top bracket, when you uncrated the doors, there's a tag on it marked "Save this bracket." Very often this bracket accidentally gets thrown away as packing. This bracket connects the top of this cover to the spiral. And if you don't put it down, that cover will vibrate and cause premature light curtain actuations. So you want to make sure that that gets installed. And then is adjusted properly so that the light curtain doesn't get interrupted with a vibrating side cover. And repeat the process on the other side of the door. Now that you've completed mechanical installation of your Hormann Speed Guardian 4000, you can install the hood if it was ordered with one, or you can get the electrician out here to get the power to the door so you can commission the door and hand it over to your customer.